Namaste and welcome everyone to another soulful session, and this will be the part 2 of our 3-session series on the art of wholesome interior design. And my name is Hengame. Together with Arko we are here to guide you through this session. And a little bit about ourselves before we start. I'm an architect by profession. I hold a PhD of architecture, and what you are hearing in this session, together with the previous one and the next one, is the result of years of research in the field of architecture and interior design, and of course combining it with the knowledge of energy. And we really hope this can help you improve your life. And I will let Arko also to introduce himself before we begin. Thank you.
Atma Namaste. Thank you all for being a part of this session and joining in for this 3-part special series, starting with the first session that houses are also people, and session 2 is the art of wholesome interior design, where we'll talk a little more in depth about some of the technical stuff, some of the ritualistic elements, how we can purify and make our homes and even our workspaces a much better place. This will be followed by a third session about, I think, on the 28th, about 20 days later, on the 28th of October. That's 2/8/28th. And that's a session on donation basis. These are free sessions. And for all those who do make donations, we'll be giving them a free copy of the ebook that we have spent many years in researching and writing. So without further ado, I invite Hengame to open the session officially. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Arko. Okay, so if you're ready, let's begin the session as usual with a short invocation. Please close your eyes. Inhale and exhale slowly and deeply. Relax your body. Calm your mind and calm your emotions. If you feel any pain or discomfort at any area of your body, bring your awareness to that area and mentally say, I let go. Inhale slowly and deeply. Exhale slowly and deeply. Now bring your awareness higher to your thoughts and your emotions. Just observe each and every thought that comes to your mind and fades away. Mentally say, I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. Thoughts and emotions are just products of the soul. I am the soul. I am that I am. Visualize all your negative thoughts and emotions disintegrate and disappear. Any fears, any worries, frustrations, stress, disintegrate and disappear. And what remains is just really and white light. Inhale slowly and deeply. Exhale slowly and deeply. Now bring your awareness higher to your crown chakra located above your head and mentally say to the Supreme Being, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to our spiritual teacher, to all the spiritual teachers, all the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, and spiritual helpers. Thank you for all of your priceless blessings, for divine light, divine love, and divine power, divine guidance, help and protection, inner healing and physical healing, good health and happiness, prosperity and abundance, spirituality and illumination. Thank you in full faith. Inhale slowly, inhale all the blessings. Exhale slowly and be aware of your whole body. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Inhale slowly, inhale all the blessings. And when you are comfortable, gently open your eyes with a big, big smile. Namaste and welcome everyone. So let's begin the session with an intro, a bit of summary of what we discussed last time and also intro of what you are going to receive today. And I would like to invite Arko to start the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angamain. So for all of us who've joined in for the session the last time, the essential idea was that when we were kids, we would draw these nice houses that had these two windows and this door. The windows would act as kind of the eyes to the home, and the door was the mouth. As a result, the houses became a representation of us. So it's no wonder that they also say the eyes are the windows to the soul, because in this case, the home represents who we feel ourselves to be. So internally and externally, it shows up in that same way. So as the quotation on the screen says, that the child, a human child, when they're drawing something, they're pleased with the house that they draw because they resemble their inner state of being. And they don't care, they're indifferent to whether it looks like the houses that we build. The houses now, which are steel and glass and are tall apartment complexes, which are kissing the sky, the skyscrapers, or, the houses that we are typically drawing are huts. None of us, I would think, in the last 20, 30 years have ever actually lived in a hut. Maybe 20, 30, several hundreds of years, maybe even. But still, there is something deep within us that makes us, whenever we say draw something, we don't draw the bungalows or the apartments or anything else, but we go back to this fundamental hut. So in that last particular session, we described that this entire place is the house is a reflection of ourself, how the house affects us, certain important factors in home design, such as space planning and arrangement and the directions. And in this particular session, we will be talking about the importance of purifications and blessings, rituals, certain parts of rituals, modern form of those rituals in terms of purification and the blessings, and certain issues that can happen if the place is not really purified. And we'll talk about a little bit of concepts of the directions, a little bit about colors, some bit of symbolism, and then that'll be the summary of this session. There may well be a bonus like last time where we did a little bit of blessings and purification. So if you have the time for that, and of course, if the audience is interested, that's something we'll go in for. So that is the intro to today's session, and we are going to go into it further with home purification.
Right. Thank you so much, Arko. So home purification, in traditional societies, every step of building a space was accompanied with a ritual, okay? And most of them, the reason for doing them was to purify the space and also to make harmony with nature, because in those days, it was believed that when we start building a house in any place, it's like an act of violence, because we are changing the harmony in nature. We are adding something man-made. So we need to recreate that harmony with nature. So respect was given to the elements of nature, to the place, to the spirit, to the spirits, to gods, and to nature spirits. So these things, this giving like respect, purifying their space, was all accompanied, showed by a ritual. Okay, now these rituals in traditional societies were categorized into 6 stages, starting with location finding and purification, and then laying the foundation stone as the start of building, ridge beam setting, main door orientation, building rituals, and purification of the house before settling in. And each of these stages was an important part of the whole construction. Now again, starting with location finding, because the place that we build a house is very, very important. Even nowadays, if you read about Vastu Shastra, if you read about Feng Shui, you will see that the place is very important. For example, it's not recommended to live in places that previously were war zones, for example, or cemeteries or things like that, because the energy is not so clean. So for traditional societies, that was also important, not only energetically but also physically. So means this ritual of finding a proper site to build was also physically important. For example, the house, that environment should have enough water resources, the soil should have been strong, and those rituals were also means of measuring, for example, the stability of the soil and so on. So in all these rituals were carefully performed at an auspicious time, calculated by an astrologer, and many of us here have some study on astrology. We actually have a book, we did a book study on astrology, and that is in Pranavar website. If you want to access that, you can go to the website. I would like to ask Arco to put the link, if you can, in the chat. And so this idea of finding the proper place and doing the rituals on the proper time and doing a specific kind of rituals was actually combining place, time, and action. Okay, and that was tied in with the idea of soul existence or immortality. So it means we have a space, we have a time, and then we invite the good energies to come to the place in this auspicious time. And therefore, for the traditional societies, that whole process of building a house, creating a sacred place for us to live in was super important. And they wanted to make sure not only whatever they make stand in harmony with nature, but also it's purified and is blessed, and the energy is good, is spiritual. Okay, so the traditional domestic architecture consists of 3 phases. First deals with material construction, and that is the technical part of any construction, and then they connected the flow of energy. Okay, the next is selecting the proper site, laying the foundation, building the structure, and then link that to the construction process, to the flow of cosmic time. So it means the proper time, the auspicious time, and then doing certain rituals so that in the auspicious time we can invite spiritual energies to come in the house and change that profane space into a sacred space to live in. Okay, now all these rituals not only were showing respect to the nature spirits, to the gods, and trying to create back the harmony with nature, but also, in traditional societies, they were not so good in technologies of construction and so on. So whenever they did any part of building and it went well, they wanted to show gratitude to God and to nature spirit. So ritual was also a form of thanksgiving after each stage of construction, because again, they were not so advanced in technology, so they were not sure that laying the foundation, erecting the building, and so on will go well. So if it happened to go well, they used to give gratitude and thanks. It was like a thanksgiving prayer. Okay, now we will discuss about some of them. Now, why we do that? Because we can gain a lot of insight from the rituals they were doing and the reason why. And we don't have to apply the same rituals in modern societies. After this, we are going to talk about modern forms of purification and blessing, but we will just discuss about what were the rituals that the traditional societies were applying, so that we understand a bit what is important, why purification was important, blessing was important, and how they used to bring that spiritual energy in the house and make it a sacred place to live in. Okay, so all the rituals, all this construction of the house was starting with selection of the right site for the building, which is both physically and psychologically significant. The site had to be naturally rich, have enough water resources, and be situated far from places with dirty energy fields, such as graveyards or battlefields. This, even in current, like in modern times, this is something that we need to consider. Like where you get a house or where you build a house, it should be far a bit far from graveyards, battlefields, also like you know, these posts that have high voltage of you know, electricity, all of these are not so good, and they can cause ailment in the future because the place is not. And also we need to make sure even the environment is like having greenery and it's nicely situated. All of that is still very important. So the reason behind such selection from the environmental point of view was to choose a site with a proper soil combination that was stable in the case of earthquake. So it means these rituals were not just spiritual, they were also connected with physical aspects. For example, they were means of testing and measuring the soil and see if the soil is stable enough in case of earthquake and so on. And from an energetic point of view, sites with a history of war, death, and so on are believed to be contaminated, and cleaning the contamination takes a lot of effort. Okay, so it's best. I know that when we are in energy field, we say, okay, it's fine, I can just get a house there and clean it. But cleaning it, especially if there is a history of like war or cemetery or something, the energy is like deep rooted and it's a bit difficult to clean it perfectly. So it's better we get a house in a site that is energetically clean. Okay, so after selecting the right site, then they were doing a lot of rituals of purification. So it means once you select, okay, this is the site that I want to build the house, then they were still doing a lot of purification and rituals that it's like, now this site is mine. Okay, so it's like taking possession of the site, connecting that site to the person. So it's like, now it's belong to me. And these purification rituals were applied to ensure that the supernatural forces of nature worked in favor of the owner, you know, like the nature spirits. For example, in Greek mythology, we have heard about, you know, gods of water, gods of wind, gods of, you know, nature, and so on. So these nature spirits, when they were building any place, they wanted to make sure that there is harmony. You know, we do something, we break the harmony, and then they were doing these rituals to make sure now the harmony is maintained. And, you know, to clean the house, some of the rituals they were doing was sacrifice offering, chanting mantras, using, you know, powders like, you know, a bit similar to incenses that we use, but they were burning some powders to clean the whole place, the site, before they start to lay the foundation and start the construction. Okay, so again, as we said, besides sacrifice offering, there were other forms of rituals, for example, chanting mantras. And one of the mantras which they were using to purify the place was Shiva mantra, or Om Namah Shivaya Om. Now, from our studies in energy and the teachings of Master Choa Kok Sui, we know that Lord Shiva is destroyer and restorer. So the energy is used to disintegrate negative forces, negative energies, and to restore. So this was one of the mantras which was being used inside purification rituals. Now, once the site is clean, now we can start construction, right? Now, construction is started with laying the foundation. You know, like even nowadays, sometimes we do that, like any new construction is starting, there is prayer and blessing for that whole, you know, construction process. So these rituals also like involved ridge beam setting and so on. So all of that were connected with important elements of the house, like the foundation, like the main beam, like the entrance door, and so on. And interestingly, if you look at traditional houses, these elements all appear with a lot of decorations. Okay, so whatever element that ritual were being applied to it, for example, the main pillars, the main beam, the entrance door, they appear with a lot of decorations. Okay, and then once the construction is done, the last step before a person start living in the house was ritual of purification. And this is something that we need to do even now in modern days. We are going to talk about it after this and what happens if you don't do. Whether you are making a house or whether you are renting a house or whether you are buying a house which was built before, it's very important to purify and bless it before we start living. We will discuss why. Okay, now going back to traditional societies, the last step was to make sure the house is ready to reside. And this set of rituals usually involved ceremonies, sacrifice offerings, purification, blessing, offerings such as coconuts, banana, plants tied to the king post, and sometimes chanting mantras again, such as mantra Om. In Islamic societies, maybe prayers from Quran, and all of these were done under supervision of a spirit man or a priest. Like in Persian societies, for example, we use something called espand. It's a powder that you burn and then you move it throughout the house to clean the house from all these negative energies and so on. Okay, so these were the rituals which were done in traditional societies, and even in modern societies we have taken the essence of some of them and we still apply. Okay, now what are these rituals and how we can apply a modern form of these in our current societies to make sure the house is clean and is blessed before we start living in. And Arco is going to guide us through that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hengame. There are a couple of points which I want to circle back to. See, you heard the term sacred and profane. Now, in the context of starting a house, building a house, what does this actually mean? So you see, every culture across time, they have their own interpretations and their own concepts and their own classifications of what they consider to be pure and impure. And many similar ideas are found in many different cultures across different points in time. Now, in religious terms, without going into any specific religion, the polluted energy or the polluted person is someone who is very destructive to society or destructive to their own health. So back before we had modern technology and modern understanding of things, someone who was unhealthy or someone who was behaving in a certain way were considered to be possessed or attacked by evil spirits. Sometimes, now this is a very interesting subject which I read on reddit.com some days back. There's a concept of something called changeling in certain Western cultures, where they believe that a child was, they're growing up to a certain age, then at age 3 or age 4, the fairies came in, F-A-E-R-I-E, the fairies came in, and they just whisked the child away, and they left a changeling in its place, which didn't quite behave like that exact child. The behavior was different. They were very hyper fixated on certain things. They had attention deficiencies and other things. Now, today in modern society, we know that certain problems like certain developmental issues, they don't show up until 2 or 3 years of age. So the people who are on the spectrum, sometimes it kicks in when they're at that particular age. Why are we talking about this? Because back then, when these rituals were being formulated and created, people didn't have access to technologies to really dig in and understand. All they wanted was to make sure that nothing goes wrong, that let good things happen and let bad things be avoided. And we want the same thing in our lives, right? Drop a yes in the comments if you agree with this, that we want to avoid the bad things and we want to welcome the good things. That's what this whole thing is about. So every culture had its classifications. And so they wanted to remove the negativity and make sure that people who are detrimental to society or themselves were in fact repelled. So what were these rituals which came in and now are a part of our traditions? Well, one of them, the modern form, is a mantra. So in certain Malay cultures, after they select a site, as Hengame spoke about, after they select the proper site, they hold a ceremony to remove the negative earth spirit. And they want to purify it and invite the friendly spirits to come in. So there's a particular chant that they do on the screen, which, since I can't really do justice to it, and there's a certain intonation. So one very important thing about mantras, right, is that you must do a proper intonation of the mantra. If you're chanting it at random or at different speeds, the mantra is not effective. Because you see, the mantra, the energy of the mantra connects very directly to the great spiritual being whom we are referring to in the chant. So think of it this way, right? My name is Orko, although it's written as ARKA. So throughout my life, I have been called all sorts of variations of my name. Okay, I have been called okra, which is, that vegetable. I'm not a vegetable. I've been called orca, which is a killer whale. Very inspiring, but I assure you, I am still very human. I've been called a variety of different things, especially by the lovely people at a certain coffee shop. It doesn't feel good when they malign the name and pronounce it in all sorts of ways. And one person actually came and said, "Are you sure you know how to pronounce your name?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've had it for more than 35 years. I know how to say my name." And the person said, "But you have never had to say your name. Other people have always called you your name." And I'm like, how do I answer this? Okay, I'm going to use it for a session sometime and tell people that, look, if you're going to call someone by their name, just do it with respect, yeah? Do it with some love. So if you're going to call somebody, some higher being, and say, "Hey, great being, please clean the obstacles," you want to say, "Dear great being, respected great being, thank you for helping us." Instead of saying, "Hey, great being, come, help, do this." The great being is going to say, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Go away." Okay, and he's going to tell the other great beings, don't go to that person, he's rude. Okay, or she has an attitude. Point being, when you're doing rituals, your intention must be very, very, very clear. Your attitude must be super, super, super respectful, super, super humble. So if you go on to the next slide, I'm not reading out the one that's on this one, but we go on the next one, where we see one particular mantra which is super popular in the Indian culture and tradition is the mantra Om Namah Shivaya. So the meaning behind this Om Namah Shivaya mantra is to respectfully, very respectfully invoke the name of Lord Shiva, who, as we know, is a very powerful being, part of the Indian Holy Trinity in the Indian tradition. And he is the embodiment of willpower. And his job is creative destruction. He will remove all the old obstacles and blockages and make space for fresh energy to come in. So when we chant Om Namo Shivaya Om, and it's chanted, there are many ways in which you can chant it. There are devotional ways of chanting it. There are very willful ways of chanting it. There are certain variations in between of chanting it. But the essence of all of this, it is to remove, to alleviate the physical and mental suffering and mental problems that people go through. And it's considered, according to the sages and the scientists of many thousands of years ago, as a form of sound therapy. That when you chant it, it helps the body and soul attain a sort of spiritual bliss. So the word here is used as nectar, but obviously we don't mean we chant Om Namo Shivaya Om and then suddenly the cup is full of nectar. You drink the nectar and you're very high. That's a different kind of mantra. Okay, we do that every Friday when we're working in the IT department. Okay, but it's not to that spiritual being we're talking about. You're allowed to laugh, by the way. So additionally, in the context of home purifications, the mantra, this particular mantra, say Om Namo Shivaya Om, helps to call upon the energy of Shiva and to invoke his power of creative destruction to disintegrate all negative energies. Now, sometimes it's not necessarily Om Namo Shivaya Om. Many of you would be very, very familiar with the Ganesh mantra, Om Ekadantaya Vidmahe Vakratundaya Dhimahe Tannodanti Prachodayat. We had a post on our Prana World Social on that some time ago, a very, very short time ago, where you invoke the energy of Lord Ganesha to remove obstacles. So every time these deities are chanted to, are spoken to, they generate a certain kind of color prana. And you can use that color prana and project it towards the obstacles and blockages, which then cause the problems to disintegrate or to become smoother. And I can tell you the story of certain people who have used that mantra. They had to reach a meeting on time. They used the mantra, channeled the energy to the road to clear out a 5-hour traffic jam, and they reached their destination in 20 or 30 minutes. There are many, many stories like this. Another example which you can give you, as Hengame was talking about in some of the slides before, where you have to, in the context again of site selection, making sure that there are no obstructing, eliminating energies in front, such as a high power transformer. So one of the work which we do is to correct the Feng Shui or even the Vastu of certain commercial locations, like people's offices, make sure the energy is going good so that their profitability increases, so that their human resources issues are sorted out. It's a very fundamental, core, and very powerful, very, very powerful technique for making your profitability go up a lot. So we were traveling somewhere, our team, and there was this particular office. It was in the arts and entertainment industry. It was like a 5-storied building. And, as many modern buildings have, you've got parking in the front and a basement parking. You have a reception and lobby area. Then you have the creative and soundproofed areas, the director's cabins, meeting rooms, and so on. So we were entering the space, and one of the first things we do before entering is to check which direction the entrance is at, okay? If it's opening in a certain direction, that's good. If it's opening in some other directions, sometimes not so good. We're going to talk about directions subsequently, as we go forward. So this particular one, I opened my compass and I got the reading of northeast. Great. My colleague got the reading of southeast. Okay, that's a little confusing. Another colleague got the reading of west. And a fourth colleague was like, my phone has stopped working. So we looked around, we were very confused as to why it's happening. We switched our phones on and off, we reconfigured everything. And we found that there was a very powerful step-down transformer, maybe about 5 meters away. That's like 15 feet away, from 15 to 20 feet away from the entrance of the building. And that high-powered transformer was entirely messing up all the electronics in the vicinity. All the electromagnetic fields and devices got completely messed up. So you can imagine what would have happened to human beings if you're in the vicinity of such a latent discharge of electricity, of an electromagnetic field happening all the time. And we didn't realize it at that time, but after we moved away from the space, suddenly all of us like, we feel better. There was a headache. We didn't realize we were getting a headache. Now, how many times have you observed this, that maybe you've got a little dull throbbing on the sides of your eyes, on the back of your head, on the top of your head, and you don't even realize it because your bodies are so resilient, so powerful, and you move away from that space and realize, oh, I was actually under that much pressure. Sometimes you'd have observed it when you're going from home to work or from work back to home, that the energy entirely completely changes. So using mantras is one way of making sure that any negative such things don't happen. So you can't just use a mantra and suddenly the transformer will explode or turn to Bumblebee or Optimus Prime. Transformers don't do that, but you can make sure that your own energies are protected and are safe. So that's one way of using it, using a mantra. The second way, which you'll see on the next slide, second, third, there are many ways, is by using incense sticks. Like you have these, in India, we call them agarbattis. You have these incense sticks, not necessarily like raw, like you use for sage smudging, but actually nice, perfect geometrical shaped cylinders, very thin, very long, which you can use. Sometimes it can be sandalwood, sometimes it can be lavender, depending on what color prana went into the manufacturing of the incense stick. Sometimes in our homes, before guests are supposed to come, we will use some lavender and lavender incense sticks and put it around the house, because a little bit of violet prana helps make the environment a little more conducive. It contains, as you know, violet contains the properties. If you go into pranic healing, you understand the properties of various color pranas. Sometimes if you want to spread some love, so you'll use something rose. So there are many instances of using substances to clean up a place from any negative influences, and also to create the emphasis of positive energy. So sometimes you can also take some essential oils, and we covered this in a prior session. You can burn certain essential oils to generate a feeling of love and peace and contentment. Or if there's been a fight, or or there's a lot of stress in a place, you can have the aroma of certain other essential oils, certain other incense sticks, to again remove the stress energy, to remove the anger energy. So in modern days, we make use of sandalwood, tea tree, lavender, a little bit of orange sometimes, depending on what's there. Ideally, these should be natural, not the commercial variety, because there are a lot of commercial and synthetic materials available. They don't have the same effect. They do not have the same effect. So you want to go in for something that's really, really natural. So this is a modern form of purification from back in the day to how things are. The essential concept remains the same, that may good things come to us and may bad things avoid us, or may we be empowered and protected by God and higher beings to avoid bad things. So that's all about the modern form of purifications, incense, mantra. Some of you may use crystals. Some of you, and if you can see from the background over there, I have crystals kept here. They're programmed for certain very specific purposes. They've been there for a long time. It is taught in Master Choco Tsui's Pranic Crystal Healing, how to program them, how to utilize them, and make your work better, or how even to use it for improving your family, your relationships in many different applications. Some people will use certain plants. There are certain plants which can be used which also alter and change the energy of the space. Now, plants, usually they're green in the color spectrum. They're right in the middle of the Vibgyor color spectrum, red to violet. So green is right there in between. It has a very harmonizing kind of effect, and people feel a lot of peace. So there are many ways and means in which you can use this. This, again, this particular part which we talked about will be covered in a lot more depth in the next session, which we're going to hold on the 28th, where we go room by room, and it's going to have a lot more details on specific things. So you can use mantras, you can use chanting, you can use incense sticks, you can use crystals, you can use plants to really elevate, not alleviate, but also elevate, to elevate the entire look, feel, and the energy of your room. So those are the modern forms of purifications and blessings. What happens if it is not purified? What happens if the room is not purified? That's something I invite Hangami to talk about.
Thank you so much, Arko. So what happens if we don't purify the place before we start to living in it? We already discussed that in traditional societies, this purification and blessing was an important part of construction and living in a house. Now in modern days, even when you are renting a place, even when you are moving to a new place, it's already constructed, but you just purchased and now you want to live in that area, we still need to purify, okay? Because now in the world of energy, we understand that thoughts, words, feeling produce energy, and therefore they can affect us positively or negatively. Okay, now imagine when you rent a place, before you there were so many people, occupants in the place. They had their own, way of thinking. They experienced their own feelings. They had arguments. They watched certain movies which were, let's say, violent or horror or so on. So they created a lot of thoughts and emotions, right? Now, if we don't purify the place and we just move to that house and start living, what do you think will happen? Before we discuss, has anyone here experienced that? Please put it in the chat. Experiencing that you go to a new place to live in and you start feeling differently. You start thinking in a certain way. You start experiencing certain incidents. Has anyone experienced that? Please put in the chat. So, besides creating harmony with nature, environment, and the beings, the energy of the place, the space, and the previous occupants need to be cleared before we start living in a new place. This is not only to create a sacred place as we discussed, but also to start fresh, to start not in that environment with all those contamination. Now let me share a few examples, and these are real stories. Years ago in Malaysia, we had a couple of students from Singapore. So they came and did basic advanced psychotherapy workshops at our center in Prana World. And there was one lady, in psychotherapy, in pranic psychotherapy, we talk a lot about thoughts and emotions and how they can affect us and how we can disintegrate such. So I think the discussion also went about houses and how also the space contain energy and is affected by the energy of the people living in it and so on. So during the break, this lady came to me and said she has a house, and in the house she has a studio attached to the house, and she rents this studio to students from other countries. And according to her, the business was good. For some time people used to come, finish their studies and go back or go to somewhere else. And it seems one time there was one student who rented her house, that studio, and she was feeling homesick. So she was always very upset, sad, crying, homesick. And because of so much of intense emotions, she couldn't continue the studies. She went back to her country. According to her, after that moment, whoever rents the space feels homesick. And she was sharing this with me, and I said, wow, this is very interesting. This is exactly what we teach, that we create thoughts, emotions. Those thoughts and emotions stay in the environment, they affect the environment, Even when we leave, that is still there unless it's cleared. So that emotion and thought of being homesick was created already by that student and was so intense, and therefore after that whoever comes there, they would experience it, because have you experienced sometimes you are going somewhere outside and suddenly a thought comes to your mind which is not your thought? We sometimes pick these thoughts from the environment. So this is similar. When imagine you live in such a contaminated environment, it will affect you. Now, another story, I heard this from Master Faith when I was in Philippines. I stayed there for 6 months and I was doing a lot of reviews on different workshops with Master Faith. And I think again this was either psychotherapy or psychic self-defense. And then she was sharing this story of a couple, Filipino couple, who moved to Hong Kong because the guy transferred there and they just got married. And they were really a lovely couple. After they went to that house, the husband started to show like different attitude, like he started to womanize. And then the lady was like, how come this started? Because he was so fine, he was so good when they were in the Philippines. And so she consulted with Master Faith. Master Faith is a fantastic clairvoyant. She can see the energies and so on. So they consulted Master Faith, and Master Faith said that there are some of those thought forms in the place that you are living now. So they did some research, and they realized that the previous occupants actually separated. They had that issue with the husband, and they separated because of that reason. So but the sad thing is, although the lady knew the reason behind such an attitude, she couldn't accept the husband's behavior and they separated. So it's best we clean the place, we clean the house, we clean the office, wherever you are moving to, before you start living. And that is something that all of us who are in the field of energy and pranic healing, we do. So one of the things that we recommend, like Arko already talked about mantras and using incense and plants and so on, or crystals, like we use also mantras, and one of the recommendation is play Om first, and then Om Namah Shivaya Om, and then Om Mani Padme Hum in this sequence, so that you clean the house generally, and then you disintegrate the thoughts and emotions using Om Namah Shivaya Om, and then you bring harmony, mercy, and compassion using Om Mani Padme Hum. Now these are some recommendations. You can always use any other mantra that you think work, but just make sure you know how they work. Okay, so means which mantra is for purification, which mantra is for blessing, which mantra brings peace. For example, Om Shanti is another mantra that brings peace. So if you know the mantra that you are going to use, then go ahead and use it in the way that you want. Thank you so much. Now let's talk about laws of directions, and Arko will guide us through that. Thank you.
Thank you, May. Laws of the directions is a very, very interesting topic, because many cultures have different ways of interpreting it. But all through time, it was seen, based on, again, different traditions and cultures, that there are certain great, great powerful beings, some very, very powerful beings, who are in charge of the different directions. What are the different directions? Of course, north, south, east, and west. Fun fact, I don't know how accurate this is, but I read this on a site somewhere, that the word news, the news that we read, north, east, west, and south, apparently. That's how the term news has apparently come. So again, it's a very interesting little anecdote. And of course, we know there are great, great physical human beings who are in charge of the news that we get. So these great beings, the non-human ones, the energy beings, they are called the lords of the directions, okay? The directional lords, or the guardian angels. Each of them, they send out a certain type of energy, a certain type of quality, and a certain type of vibration. Now, in different cultures, different names have been given to them. In the creation of, say, a mandala, which is something you'll see in a lot of Buddhist monasteries or paintings, and a certain reference picture you can see on the side, these directional lords, the presence of these directional lords, decide where certain rooms and what should be placed in those rooms are determined. So they will tell you where the entrance should be. So for example, if you have a garbage vat right at the entrance of your home, is that good energy or bad energy? Quite obviously, it's bad energy. So based on certain common sense things, as well as certain, shall we say, aspirational things, that this is the ideal. This is common sense, but that's the ideal, is the way these things have been structured. So if you go on the next slide, we'll see that according to the Indian culture of Vastu Shastra and also in the traditional Persian architecture, there are 10 important directions. And you can very well imagine what the 10 refer to. They refer to, again, north, south, east, and west. The 4 sub-directions, so northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest, and the 2 directions above and below. So sometimes when we're, say, especially during the Vesak ceremony, if you're meditating in a group for Vesak, and if there's a teacher who's guiding the meditations and everything, they are going to say, may there be blessings to all the beings in all 8 directions above and below. And they'll also refer to the higher world, the middle world, and the lower world, which again has a certain 3-dimensional, a geometric space and time component to this. Now, among these 10 directions, the 4 cardinal ones, north, south, east, and west, are the most important, are the most vital. So who are these lords of these directions? We'll go on to the next slide. Lord Kuber, the Lord of Wealth. Now, this again, we're talking in specificity with only 2 traditions. One is the Indian tradition, one is the Chinese tradition. There are many, many more, but in general, for the purpose of this particular talk, these are the 2 ones that we are referring to, that we're referencing. So the north direction, Lord Kuber, the Lord of Wealth, he's connected to the red phoenix in Feng Shui. And in the Christian tradition, Archangel Gabriel, in certain cultures also pronounced as Archangel or Archangel Jibrail, pardon my pronunciation, considered to be the bearer of good news. So that is the northern direction. The eastern direction, so north you go to east, in the Indian tradition is Lord Indra. He traditionally faces the eastern direction. He is the Lord of rain and growth, okay? So the Lord of the thunderbolt. And you can, of course, the moment I say the Lord of thunderbolt, you can think of certain other cultures and esoteric traditions where there's a male patriarchal god figure who is in charge of the directions, and of course, who has their own specific qualities. And those qualities across the cultures are kind of similar. So you understand that, okay, you know what, there's a certain commonality. The stories differ, the legends differ, but the root, there's some similarity to the root. So in the eastern direction, you got Lord Indra for growth and rain and prosperity, for rain and growth, connected to the white tiger in the Chinese tradition in Feng Shui, and Archangel Uriel, known as the light of God, In the western direction, we have Lord Varuna, the Lord of the Water, Lord of Purification, connected to the green dragon in Feng Shui, and Archangel Raphael, or Raphael as many would pronounce, known as the love of God. So you've got Gabriel, you've got Archangel Uriel, and you've got, of course, Archangel Raphael, which leaves the 4th direction, Lord Yama. Okay, he is the Lord of Death. The Lord of Death, now here is a very interesting thing, according to some of my personal studies, is more like the messenger or the person who ushers you into the underworld and doesn't really kill you. None of the gods of the underworld in any of the traditions have necessarily killed anybody. It's usually the gods of war or poverty or hunger which result in death. But the gods themselves of death, they bring a lot of peace. And I remember reading this in a certain book somewhere, that life is all about struggle, but in death there is peace. And this sentiment is also echoed in the works of many spiritual teachers, where they say that dying is a science. So don't go kicking and screaming, go gently into the light. So it's all about that white light going into that peace. And so you want peace in your home, but of course you don't want everyone to be dead. That is not a nice thing. But we try to keep everything light and humorous, as well as keeping the esoteric teachings in mind. So Lord Yama, Lord of Death, connected to the black tortoise in Feng Shui, and Archangel Michael or Archangel Michael, also known as the power of God, connected to the southern direction. So you've got Archangel Gabriel. Behind you, you've got Archangel Michael. To your right, assuming you're facing north, to your right, you will have the light of God, Archangel Uriel, and to your left, you will have Archangel Raphael, known as the love of God. And of course, the 4 corresponding directions. So these are the 4 main directions that we talk about. we can utilize these ideas and concepts for enhancing peace, enhancing stability, enhancing fortune. And there are many permutations and combinations which you can work with to get you the result that you desire, whether at home or at work. So that's all about the directions. The next one, we're going to talk about objects, certain objects which you can place in your room, which you're going to look at.
Thank you so much, Arko. Now, this leads to the other idea we discussed, decorations and symbolism. Okay, now, the idea we discussed in the previous session that whenever you look at an object or a photo, a picture, it creates some thought process in your head. Like when you see something, you feel you have a thought, and that thought leads to a certain feeling in you. For example, when you look at images of war, when you look at images showing poverty, how do you feel? Can you try to recall? And if you like, please put in the chat how they make you feel when you look at those images. Now, on the other hand, when you look at, let's say, a portrait of a happy family, you see, for example, abundance, coins, you see nice sceneries, you see, prosperous areas or objects, or, like sometimes the symbolism as like coins and stuff. How do you feel? So the idea of using decorative objects is to create that kind of thought in you whenever you look at them again and again and again. And since if we put those in our house, in our office, in our space, whenever we look at them, it creates a certain feeling, a certain thought, a certain emotion, which eventually attract that kind of, energy to us. So first of all, any place should be clutter-free. If you just, search Feng Shui, Vastu, whatever, this is the first thing sometimes you will read, that the place should be clutter-free, because clutter creates stagnation, congestion, and obstacle in the flow of energy. And also it creates distraction. Like when you see a certain area in your house and it's so clean and neat and organized, your mind also feels organized. It's like easy to think. But if the house, the place, the office especially, is filled with a lot of things, lot of objects, lot of files, and it's like full of clutter, you can't think clearly also, because everything, whatever you look at, creates a certain thought, and that whole, image of everything disorganized also affects us. So first of all, we need to make sure the house, the space, the office, wherever you want to use, is clean, is organized, and clutter-free. Okay, so we have free flow of energy and peace of mind. Okay. Besides that, objects, photos, and all these pictures create certain influence on us. Now, some of these symbolic objects, they have believed to bring a certain type of energy in a certain culture. Okay, so if you belong to that culture, you can use those. But if it doesn't resonate with you, then you don't have to. Okay, because again, we said that should create that kind of energy in us, that kind of feeling, that kind of thought. Okay, for example, Wu Lu in Feng Shui. Okay, this believed to contain elixir of immortality. So it's a symbol of good health. It's being used in Chinese Feng Shui as a symbol of good health. The second one here, the dragon-headed tortoise. It combines the symbolism of dragon and tortoise, and also coins, as you see here. So dragon symbolizes success, courage. Tortoise symbolizes longevity, long life. And then coins, prosperity. So this believed to bring success, longevity, and prosperity. And again here, this one, mystical knot, is a symbol of endless abundance, because apparently the way they make it, you can see the start and the end of the knots. So it creates that kind of thought that there is no start and no end. So it brings endless abundance. For example, now there may be many other symbolic objects in your culture that correspond to good health, to prosperity, to spirituality. Another example, for example, the three old wise men. Have you seen that image? It's like three old Chinese wise men, and one of them is the symbol of good health, another one is the symbol of happiness, and another one is the symbol of prosperity. So that one photo is believed to bring these three energies. Now again, in Indian tradition, for example, we can see a lot of lotus flowers being used in decorating a certain space, in ornamentations, or as objects. Now lotus flower has spiritual symbolism, like pink lotus corresponds to the heart, to love energy, and golden lotus corresponds to the unactivated crown chakra connected with spirituality. So again, it depends. You can make use of these symbols, these objects that have either universal symbolism or they have cultural symbolism. You can also use objects, photos, statues that make you feel good when you look at them. Okay, for example, a happy family, for example, nature, flowers, whatever make you feel good, you can also use it. Whatever make you feel inspired. Now, one of the things that you can use if you have a spiritual teacher is also the photo of your spiritual teacher, whether they're in the physical body or not, and that helps you to connect with them and receive the energy. So that is up to you which object to use, but please try to avoid images that portray poverty, war, and death, or the colors are so gloomy and dark that when you look at them you feel unhappy. Some of them, they have a lot of sharp edges that when you look at them you feel, threatened. So that is up to you, case to case, but there are so many of these statues, decorative items, pictures, photos that you can use to bring those kind of energies in your environment as a decorative object. Now, besides these decorative objects, which is connected with the idea of symbols and how they affect us, how they affect our psyche, colors are also very important. We have psychology of colors, and Arco will guide us through that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hengame. Objects surround yourself with objects that evoke positive psychological response. That is the keyword. So in modern times, the study of color psychology is very widely utilized by the sales and marketing industry. And if you think about it, for copyright reasons, we didn't put them up on the slide. But if you think about any fast food chains, they're going to have a lot of bright, happy, warm colors. Okay, so you think of golden yellows and reds and a little bit of blue. You will never see any fast food chain with a lot of blue as their primary color. They'll usually have a lot of red. Okay, but if you think of any corporate colors, you think of a little bit of blacks, you think of, again, blues. You think of any spiritual organizations, yes, as in the chat, you've got the exact brand we're thinking about. See, thought forms work. In the corporate world, you'll have a lot of companies which have square shapes or rectangular shapes, and they're going to have a lot of blue colored branding. For spiritual organizations, you'll have purples and violets and these kind of colors coming in. You'll have lots of whites. So color theory can impact a lot of people's psyches in the way they see things, the way they buy things, making them want to buy. So if I put up a countdown timer that says, sale, okay, all right, let's just do this for a second. Imagine you've got the word sale, 50% off, ending in 2 hours. Okay, big one. What color do you think that's going to be written in? What color do you think that sale think is going to be written in? Okay, you're right. And as the comments are saying, we're getting the DMs, it's going to be red. They're going to have a huge, big red, maybe the lettering is going to be white, saying there's a big sale, can come and get it. On the other hand, if you have something that says with blue sale, people will think, hey, what's going on? It's just going to look a little weird. So this color theory, this strategic use of color, extends beyond just the visual elements. It encompasses branding, packaging, and of course, the way your home looks. Now, on the next slide, we've taken this and connected it with some of the esoteric things, such as the study of the 7 rays. There are many topics. It's out in the public domain about the 7 rays, where what each ray stands for. So ray number 1 is very connected to willpower. So as you can see the text on the screen, the ray 1 individuals are very often natural leaders. They possess strong willpower. They possess a lot of determination and courage. These are the people who don't take no for an answer. You give them a goal, you give them a target, they're going to go to that particular target. So they achieve their goals. That's their natural motivation, and they can inspire others with their passion, with their vision, with their entire strength. So a lot of ray 1 people will radiate this red color. They will attract the red color. So you'll have ray 1 as a very red colored energy. Ray 2 people, they're characterized by their ability to love, to empathize, and to connect with others. So what color do you like? What's your favorite color? That might give an insight as to which ray you belong to or which ray you might need to develop. So the ray 2 persons are very good listeners. They're very good at nurturing. They're very good at mediating and solving problems. They're also good at teaching. And they bring a lot of harmony and understanding amongst the group of people that they're working with. Ray 3, that's a green color. Ray 3 people love a lot of green, although certain people in this chat will disagree about whether the speaker is a Ray 3 personality or not. The Ray 3 personalities, they tend to be very intellectual. They adapt to problems. You give them a problem, they'll find a solution out of it. They are very resourceful in solving problems. They are good at, again, they're good at critical thinking, and they can quickly grasp new concepts and new ideas. So that's a Ray 3 person. A Ray 3 person can have a lot of abstract thinking, but they can also have sometimes difficulty in communicating their ideas to people. So that's Ray 3. Ray 4, this is again a yellowish kind of color, as you can see. They have the ability to find the balance. So Ray 4 is about harmonizing conflicting factors, or as the esoteric teachings say, to harmonize, to bring harmony through conflict. Okay, so if there's a problem, they will solve that problem. They'll bring harmony to it. They will find a common ground. They'll find ways to make people feel united, despite there being very opposite opinions. So that's Ray 1, 2, 3, 4, red, blue, green, and yellow. And it's very interesting that a lot of companies have these 4 colors in their logos because they want to use all these 3 primary energies. Okay, because esoterically, the other rays 4, 5, 6, 7, they flow from Ray 3. Okay, I think that's how the concept goes. So all these energies, they come under the rays, and they want to make sure that, okay, we don't want to leave anything to chance. We want leadership. Yes, we want leadership. We want peace. Yes, we want peace. You want to solve problems. Yes, you want to solve problems. You want to make sure everything is harmonized. Yes, everything is harmonized. So certain companies, they do a really smart thing, and they have all the 4 colors in their logos. Does that mean you can have all 4 colors in your room? No. You walk into a room with a red wall, you look on the left and it's a blue one, you look down and it's a green colored floor, and people will say, are you all right? Are you sure? And you say, yes, and become very spiritual. They say, okay, you know what? Goodbye. Thank you so much. So, you want to bring harmony. So Ray 5, this is an orange kind of color. They have a lot of analytical skills. They really get into the details. They have a very systematic task approach. They're good at research, data analysis, and organizing information. Okay. Ray 6, this is a violet kind of color, and they're very devotional. They're really committed to their beliefs. They're committed to the causes they believe in. They're committed to their loved ones. They're loyal. They're passionate, and they often inspire others by their dedication to their work. These people just show up for the work. It's a rainy day. It's a sunny day. There's a riot. Ray 6 people show up. A lot of violet. There's a lot of devotion. So despite there being miscommunications or misunderstandings, think of that person in your life who will always keep on showing up for you. Chances are you'll find that they're very attracted to the color violet. Okay. And lastly, Ray 7. These are an indigo colored ones. And this is very different from any other concepts. We're just talking about the color indigo, not anything else. They belong on creating structure, okay? Structure and organization in their environment. And they are very good at planning, at organizing, and implementing systems and processes. So you're starting up an organization, the Ray 1 person will come in and create the organization. That's great, but you've got to again keep the organization going. So that is taken care of by the Ray 7 person who will create the structure. So depending on the kind of room that you want, depending on the kind of energy you want to radiate in your business or in your life, you can have certain home decor, you can have certain walls which radiate this particular color. Now, obviously, if you think you're a Ray 5 person who's very analytical, having a room that's colored entirely orange can be a bit too much. So sometimes you can have like a highlight wall or a textured wall, or maybe your interiors can have those colors as a highlight, depending on the kind of energy that you'd like to bring in. Again, practicality. We have to use common sense and practicality along with it. You can't just say, oh, I want all the colors, so my entire house is painted white. That's just going to look very, very monotonous. Or you say that I absorb everything. I'm a very strong person. I've gone through many difficult things in life. So you end up with a black ceiling and a black wall and black furniture. You look like you're, the action movie of the latest John Wick movie. Okay, so everything has to have a lot of balance in it. So that's color theory and how we can utilize these. All this theory that we're talking about, we're going to tie it up in the last session on the 28th. So what's next? What is coming up on 28th? Before we go into that, all of this information is in this book, in the Art of Wholesome Interior Design. You can see this on your screen. There's a QR code. You can scan the QR code. For anyone attending this session, we already have a discount going on. I think there's a 20% discount going on. You can just purchase this book at this price. For anybody joining in for the next session, making a donation, this book, we'll be giving more details on that, announcing on social media. This book is included as a part of your registration. We'll be automating that. So this, the Art of Wholesome Interior Design, is there for your reference, for your purchase. On the next slide, which is, I think, essentially the last slide, what is coming for us in the next session? Well, session 2, we spoke about all of these on the left column, as you see. And on the right column, architecture for the new generation, how your entrance and foyer should be, how your living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, and meditation room should be. And of course, since we are also still working from home, some of us, how your office or study room should be. We're going to go into a lot more details of that. So that's that for our session. The next one on the next screen, architecture for the new generation. That's the final part of this particular series, 28th October at 9 p.m. Kuala Lumpur time, which is 6:30 p.m. India Standard Time. And we will be trying for translations on that one. We'll be trying for translations on that one, and we'll see what we can do. So thank you once more, every one of us, for joining in for this wonderful session. Hengame, would you like to do the closing invocation? Or would I?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay. Please, everyone, close your eyes. Inhale and exhale slowly and deeply. Relax your body. Be at your most receptive state. Feel the gratitude towards God, towards our spiritual teacher and all the spiritual teachers and spiritual guides for all this immense amount of knowledge in this session and other sessions, and for guiding us, for protecting us, for helping us. Smile. You may put your hands in a namaste position on your heart if you like. Mentally say to the Supreme Being, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to our spiritual teacher, to all the spiritual teachers, to Master Chuak Sui, to Lord Mahaguruji Mailing, all the great ones, all the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, and spiritual helpers. Thank you for all of your priceless blessings, for divine light, divine love and divine power, divine guidance, help and protection, inner healing and physical healing, good health and happiness. Thank you in full faith. Now please put your hands in a blessing position. Visualize your house, your office, the place that you want to bless. Be aware of your heart and your crown. Mentally say to the Supreme Being, Divine Father, Divine Mother, thank you so much for blessing our houses, our offices, with lots of divine light, divine love and divine power, divine guidance, help and protection, good health and happiness, prosperity and spirituality, in full faith, so be it. Visualize golden energy from your hands, going and blessing the whole house. May any contamination, any negative thoughts, negative emotions, all get disintegrated and raised into higher vibrations. May our homes, our offices, all be tremendously blessed by the Supreme God. So be it, so be it, so be it. And when you are comfortable, gently open your eyes with a big, big smile. Thank you so much everyone for joining, and hope to see you in the next session. Please feel free to share. The video will be available in YouTube, and we will send you emails, and you can also follow our social media for more posts. Thank you so much. Atma Namaste.